2 each. As the White House gears up for a brutal re-election campaign, a major shift at the top. Embattled White House Chief of Staff Bill Daley has turned over some of his operational responsibilities to presidential confidant Pete Rouse. Rouse will now assume a far greater role in legislative affairs. Joining me now, Illinois Republican Congressman Robert Dold and Washington State Democratic Congressman Jim McDermott. Gentlemen, it's great to see you.
Great to be with you.
Congressman McDermott,
Chris.
Bill Daley was widely hailed as this breath of fresh air when he was appointed, but his relationships with the Democratic and Republican leadership in Congress have fell short of many people's expectations. Do you feel that, and if so, what happened?
Well, I think he was brought in to make some changes, and there's always people who don't like the changes. But what is really exciting is what the president's now doing. The president's been out on the stump working on foreclosures and working on student loans and working on veterans' jobs. Whoever's making those changes is doing a good job.
So you think that's working, and you're hearing that from your constituents?
Yes, everybody's excited by the change in the president's performance since Bill Daley got there. So I understand there may be some bruised egos here and there, but I like what the president's up to.
Well, let's talk about the potential for some of these changes. And the White House, I should say, Congressman Dold, is saying, well, let's not look at this as some major shakeup, but some of the responsibilities are going to go to Pete Rouse. And he sometimes boasts that he's known as the 101st Senator. Tell us a little bit about what kind of relationship you have with him, and if you think this can help some of the intractability that seems to be plaguing Congress.
Well, honestly, my relationship, having been in Congress just 10 months, has been not very much in terms of dealing with Rouse, but certainly Bill Daley is somebody that I've worked with in the past, and you know, as he pares back a little bit, hopefully he'll be able to focus on some of the things that we need to focus on as a country, as jobs in the economy. And I think that Jim will agree with me that, you know, I don't care who you ask in the Congress right now, the number one issue we face in our country is how do we jumpstart the economy and get more people back to work.
And there was, Congressman, some good news today. Mitch McConnell saying on the Senate floor today that there is some agreement between Republicans and Democrats. They're getting set to approve 2 portions of the president's jobs bill, which have already been approved in the House. Does this bode well for the future, or is this going to be just the little piece, Congressman Dold, that manages to get through?
Well, I certainly hope that we can focus on more of those things that we can find some common ground on.
What else is there out there that you think that can get through?
Well, we just take a look at what's happened. The president came and spoke before a joint session of Congress and said passing the trade agreements is going to be a key part of his jobs plan. We agree. So that passed the United States House of Representatives, passed the Senate, and the President signed that into law. Talks about excessive regulation. Certainly we agree. We passed the 3% withholding, which the President jumped on board, saying that we should eliminate that. It's been stuck in the Senate. We certainly hope that passes. But there's other excessive regulation that we identify out there that is a prohibitor for small businesses to move forward. And we've got to create an environment in Washington that enables this private sector to be able to forecast, have some confidence, invest back in their businesses, and grow.
Yeah, Congressman McDermott, I don't need to tell you that across the country people are fed up. We see that 50% in our latest poll, 50% of people identify either with the Tea Party or with the Occupy Wall Street movement, which really represents the kind of discontent with the status quo, with the economy, in some cases with government. Do you see areas going forward after all this rancor in Washington where there can be some more common ground?
I think the Republicans are figuring out that you can't run on a record of doing nothing, as they have done for the last 3 years. And even Mitch McConnell, who said his number one goal is to defeat the President of the United States, he's even changed his tune. And I think you're going to see some things happen. What I don't see is them moving on infrastructure projects that would make some sense. There are huge numbers of problems across this country that require us to begin planning the infrastructure changes, and it's just simply not happening because the Republicans won't consider that kind of job. They think that the private sector is going to produce everything, but it simply hasn't done it up to this point, and the federal government has got to be a part of the solution.
Well, let's talk about one aspect of this, which is housing, and we all know how important this is to the overall economic growth and how much it contributed to the downfall. There's an article in the Chicago Tribune this morning, your home state, Congressman. A little more than 46% of all single-family homes with a mortgage in the Chicago area were underwater in the year's third quarter. That's a pretty astonishing statistic. What are we going to do about it?
Well, I think part of what you have to take a look in terms of the housing market is we've got to talk about how do we get more confidence back there? How do we get more people off the unemployment line so that they can start putting, making making the mortgage payments. We've got an unemployment rate in Illinois that's over 10%, and in certain areas of the 10th district, it's 20 to 22%. So we've got to talk about moving forward. We've got to talk about how do we get people off of the unemployment lines, which is why you're going to hear about do-nothing Congress. Well, that's certainly not the House of Representatives, because we've passed bill after bill after bill that is stacking up on Harry Reid's doorstep, and frankly, we've got a plan to put America back to work. And you go to house.gop.gov, and we've got this plan, jobs.gop.gov, that's going to be talking about what we can do for the American public. And frankly, a do-nothing Congress is not what we're in Washington to deal with.
Democratic Congressman Jim McDermott, let me ask you to respond to that, because we have heard that from a lot of Republicans, that they're doing their job over in the House. It's the Democrats in the Senate that aren't making this move forward. Is that fair?
No, in fact, Bob sounds just like the Democrats for the 2 years we sent hundreds of bills over to the Senate, and Harry Reid tried, and Mitch McConnell used the filibuster more times than had ever been used in the history of this country to stop things. He ran the country with 40 votes. And as long as Harry Reid is faced with Mitch McConnell in the filibuster, he can't move bills. Mitch McConnell is the one who has had his foot on the neck of this country's economy. And the polls are now showing that Americans understand that Republicans are willing to sacrifice the health of our economy to have political advantage.
I wish we had more time. Congressman Jim McDermott out there in Seattle, Congressman Robert Dold here in our studio. Thank you, gentlemen. It's great to see you.
Chris, it's great to be with you.
And we've been talking a lot about 2012, but today is Election Day, and that's trending on Twitter. So today's tweet of